So my name's Chris Godwin, and I am the writer-director of Invisible.
And this is an original idea by you together with Dr. Sharin Baldwin of the Health Visitors Institute. What led you to devise this film, Chris?
So I made a film back in, I think it was about 2016, about the mother's perspective of postnatal depression. And that film had a really big impact. And through the work that I did for that film and the promotion of the film, I came across Sharin Baldwin, and she had been doing a lot of work into the father's perspective of postnatal depression or father's mental health, however you like to describe it. And so we had quite a few discussions around that time about the potential of making a film. It took quite a long time, but we finally, everything aligned. We got the money, we got the funding, and we made the film. It was around sort of March, April time this year.
To what extent is loneliness for new dads really portrayed? We hear a lot more, in a really good way about information and signposting and support for women going through, postnatal depression. But it seems to me, looking in on this, that there's not as much around for us blokes.
Yeah, I think the public perception is that men just get on with it, and I think certainly that's the case. That was born out of the research that Sharin has done, is that men, not only is that the public perception, but I think Kieran should certainly be able to back this up, that men feel as though they are kind of on the periphery, they are kind of spectators in the whole process. And so I think this film really challenged that perception and broadly challenged the perception about depression. I mean, even conversations that I've had about making the film with contemporaries of mine have sort of had quite a distorted view on the role of the father, and that actually, why would the father complain about it? It's nothing to do with them. It's really a mother's experience. And so I think the film really challenges that perception.
And how did you take that information and the accuracy and then interpret it in such a creative way?
The foundation was Sharin's research, and Sharin's research had she'd done a lot of interviews with people who had lived experience of this. And that is the heartbeat of the whole of this film. It's about lived experience. And so I spoke to lots of people who had lived experience of poor mental health during fatherhood. And that was the driving force behind all the story development. And what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to create a story is I'm trying to find an insight. I'm trying to find something to hook the film on. And one of the things that came across really strongly was a kind of a distorted sense of masculinity. This idea that, I am the provider. I don't have a role here. I need to find a role. And so it's like, well, okay, I need to be the one that goes out there and gets the money in and supports the family. And that becomes a slightly sort of obsessive behavior, and maladapted sort of behavior as well, which can lead to depression. And so that was like a really, really strong sort of motivation behind the story, and not wanting to give too much away, but in the film, our main character, Luke, is basically feels the pressure that he needs to provide accommodation for the family. And that was something that came across with quite a few interviews that we had with fathers who were like saying that they felt that they should be finding accommodation, getting her out of the in-laws, and sort of supporting the family independently. But what we wanted to do with the film, we wanted to give the central character no reason to really have to move out of the house, to demonstrate that actually it's about masculinity. It's about being what it is to be a man. Yeah. So that was the one thing that came through, and then the other thing that really came through And bear in mind that a lot of the people that we interviewed for this film had a far more extreme experience of poor mental health. So a lot of the fathers I spoke to had suicidal ideation at some point, and a few of them had actually tried to kill themselves. But one of the things that really kind of struck me was that actually a lot of those fathers had unresolved mental health issues in their lives. They had like past trauma, they had past depression that they'd never addressed, and then they have this life-changing event which basically triggers all these kind of really unsettling thoughts, and they start manifesting themselves. And bear in mind that this film is sort of mainly aimed at health visitors to kind of make them understand and have an awareness of what it is to be a father. I suppose what was quite strong about that insight was that you just never know what experience a father has had. You don't know. The people that you speak to on a daily basis, you're seeing one dimension of them, and they're probably bringing a whole load of other experience to it. And it takes this life-changing event to really trigger this sort of deeper, unsettling depression.
So, Ryan, I come on to you. Obviously, as an actor, lots of considerations there that Chris was talking about. As an actor, what were your reasons for getting involved and wanting to portray Luke?
I think because the research had been put in, and it was evidently on the page. It felt lived in. I think from the audition itself, I felt very connected to it, even though I was kind of faffing around with a towel in the audition. One in particular, the first scene, the kind of towel sort of came apart. But I did, yeah. I felt immediately connected to the words, and what Chris had put onto the page. It was lived in, and everything he's just said is the reason why that was the case. That Luke felt alive, and I think because it was such a mix of different stories, it really worked, and it just raised those stakes as a result of that. And yeah, I just immediately felt connected from the get-go, really.
How did you go about preparing the role? For example, did you speak to some of those who'd informed that information on that lived experience?
Yeah, just about some of the traits and just understanding it. But I did connect to it, so I kind of just wanted to tell my perspective of it. So I didn't. It is something. If I struggle to, then I will reach out. If I'm struggling to connect something on the page, if I don't feel like I fully have an understanding of it, then I'll always try and reach out. But I did, to be honest, and I just thought I'm going to tell it through my story and my version of it.
So there was a relatability, a connection, and I can hear a passion there for portraying Luke in this story.
Yeah, definitely needed to do it justice. As Chris has said, it's people's stories who have come out and been brave enough to share those stories. So yeah, there's definitely a need to give it justice when that is the case. I mean, I'm not a dad, but you don't have to be a dad to know about those pressures, do you? Whether you're a dad or not, you still feel those pressures going, right, well, I need to provide, I need to have this, I need to have these things set in motion from the point of manhood, really, isn't it? Yeah. Those wheels are you're already constantly thinking about those things. They play a relevance in every male's life, I think, whether you're a dad or not.
The film throws up quite a few different issues that the character goes through and is in. What were some of the challenges for you as an actor in portraying Luke there?
I think just the height of the emotion and ensuring that that came across and needing to be connected to it. Sometimes we had like little moments where we were trying to build to it, particularly the final scene, because of that difficulty of just wanting to leave in that final scene, and when we were trying to get to that build, but then also enable that I don't leave the house, and what's stopping me. So we had a few little struggles there, like discussions about that, get to that point of what really grabs me back and what pulls me back from just leaving the house.
Kieran, coming on to yourself as well here from Dad Matters. For those that don't know, just tell us about Dad Matters. Who are you guys, and how do you help dads, men, families?
So Dad Matters is a project based within Home Start, which is a national federated charity. There's 175 Home Starts across the country. We've got around 35-ish Dad Matters coordinators. We work on a perinatal mental health project supporting dads. Our real aim is to support babies to have better relationships with their dads. So we focus on dads, we target them, we have everything is kind of dad friendly, but it really is to improve babies' relationships with their dads.
And then how do you practically do that on the ground, so to speak?
We don't ask dads to reach out to us because they don't. They wait and wait and wait until they're in crisis, and then we're not enough for that intervention. So we reach in, we go to antenatal classes, antenatal clinics, we go to neonatal units, mother and baby units. We work with health visitors, midwives, perinatal mental health teams to generate referrals. So then we do one-to-one support for dads, where we meet them where they are. That could be in the home, it could be in the community, it could be over the phone, whatever they kind of feel comfortable with. And we don't wait for them to tell us things, we ask them questions about things we know might be impacting them. So rather than say, how are you doing? We'll say, how was the birth? How's your partner doing? How's things at work? How's the baby? How's sleep? Being really practical and direct about how we do that. In the last 9 years, we've supported just shy of 2,000 dads in a one-to-one support. We've spoken to around 40,000 dads in universal engagements, trained around 15,000 professionals, and we know 84% of the dads we work with in one-to-one tell us they've improved their mental health, and 76% have improved their knowledge of what their baby needs from them as well as a dad, and like their role as a dad.
And in your professional capacity there, Kieran, to what extent is loneliness felt in dads from your research, from your work?
It has a massive impact, but I don't think it's always identified as loneliness by the dads that we work with. And most men, their friends group drop after the age of sort of 18 to 20, so they probably have less friends. They have more social interactions, but they wouldn't class them as friends usually. So things like they might play football, or they might have a group that they go to, they might have gigs that they go to, but it'll be much more social. And in those social interactions, men don't talk about how they are. They are there to avoid talking about how they are usually. So if you have a football group, I go play football, it helps my mental health, but I don't talk to people there about how I am. How do we help dads to acknowledge that loneliness might be the problem? And that is all about reaching in, asking them, you know, what they've got around them, what their networks are, and identifying or highlighting what that might look like. That's one of the reasons this film is so good, is that we can use it to highlight to dads, this is kind of how you might feel. You might experience any one of these particular things that Ryan portrayed so well in Luke's journey. Is this something that you're thinking about? Is this something that you've experienced? Are you struggling with this particular aspect of your life? Can really help dads to acknowledge that it's a problem as well.
And to what extent are we as blokes, as society, you as professionals and support bodies, better understanding this? Because, you know, here we are again in November talking about Men's Mental Health Month. Do you think we're getting any better?
I think we're getting much better at being aware of it. I think there's a little bit more knowledge and research into how we deal with it, but boots on the ground is difficult. Funding and commitment from funders and government and policymakers, services specifically for perinatal mental health for dad are almost non-existent. Dad Matters is commissioned in some areas before that, but it's usually the generic kind of mental health pathways, sometimes with priority access if you have a baby under 2. So there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more awareness that we need to raise, but also we need more innovation. We need to stop going back to the usual, the things we've been trying for the last 30 years, like dads groups. Dads groups are great. They work really well for men to interact with their children. But they're not there really to support that one-to-one mental health issues that they might have. So we need to really think more innovatively, and we need to attract more funding and commissioners' support for that too.
And then from a practical point of view, where professionals are not there in that one-to-one setting, but maybe a partner is, or a best mate or a colleague, what are 1 or 2 things that we as blokes could be helping our mates do better and open those conversations up?
Don't avoid the tough questions. That's the single most important thing we can do. Ask your mate, how are you doing? what's going on, what are the struggles, but also, you know, we can talk about suicide, we can talk about self-harm, we can ask about it. We can't make it worse if it's happening by asking about it. So we need to be making sure that we are openly role modeling that behavior. So asking about it and talking about our own with our friends and our colleagues to make sure that they understand we're somebody they can talk to.
What's been the reaction to the film so far, Chris?
It's been pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. We've had lots of people sort of reaching out to us having watched the film. The film has been shared numerous times on the Institute of Health Visiting website. I tell you, the interesting thing about it is, yes, this film is sort of aimed at health visitors, but it's really sparked a broader conversation about masculinity and men's mental health, which is something which I suppose I wasn't really thinking about when the film was made. You know, we had a very distinct brief. And I think it shows that it's touching on something. I think it shows that it's touching on something that perhaps we're not talking about enough. And I think it's mainly because of the issue, because like I said earlier, I think there is a perception that, you know, we do talk about postnatal depression, but, you know, and we talk about it very much in the context of women, and the kind of perception that men could in any way have any kind of mental health difficulties, you know, around the early years of having a child, is something that's not discussed. And I think that's why it sort of challenges this kind of broader sense of what it is to be a man and our perceptions of masculinity in society at the moment. There's one scene in the film which has provoked a lot of debate, but I won't reveal what that scene is, other than it touches on intrusive thoughts. We don't talk about intrusive thoughts, and this was something that came through the research quite a lot, was that men have these intrusive thoughts about harming their child. And, you know, there were some quite extreme things that were revealed to me during the research side of it. And interestingly, one of the bits of feedback I got, it was actually from a woman who talked about an intrusive thought that she'd had, and she'd never talked about it until she'd watched the film. Until she saw the film, she thought that she was in some way evil, but they're very natural.
Certainly within the sort of my closest friends, my sort of closest friendship group, the WhatsApp, I'm the only one who's not got a kid now, not got a baby. A lot of my mates really did connect to it. I had one particular friend who he had a very brief moment of that postnatal depression. It was very brief intrusive thought and that feeling of that isolation of feeling, oh my God, my life's over. And his son was crying his eyes out during the night. He just didn't want to get up and attend to him almost. And then he did, and then he had this moment of being like, oh my God, my life's over, and now I'm a dad, this is it, now this is life. And then he picked him up, and then he stopped, and then he just thought, oh no, this is just the best, most amazing feeling. So it was kind of like all those those feelings that we see Luke go through within the film.
Absolutely.
Kind of pressed down into a brief moment, and then just that realization of just how wonderful it is.
You know, bearing in mind we are BFBS, the forces station. We're broadcasting in the UK and around the world to serving armed forces, their families, veterans, young veterans as well. I'll throw this to all three of you if you'd like. How does it make you feel to know that military families are going to be watching this through SAFA, the Armed Forces charity, and our website?
Yeah, we work with Armed Forces families. We provide support, drop-ins, one-to-ones, and actually there's so many more aspects that they might struggle with that could contribute to these feelings that we see in the film. And again, acknowledging that these feelings happen, that these experiences are real and valid, is a great way for the film to kind of be used. And hopefully it'll help those families that are experiencing this to reach out, to get support, to talk about it, and really hold the baby at the center of those conversations, so that the babies get the best the best support from their families and their parents that they can get.
Look, the purpose of this film is to trigger conversation. You know, that's what we want it to do. We want it to be a platform for debate and reflection. And if it can do that, then, you know, that's an amazing thing. And you know, I'm incredibly excited and proud and honoured that this film is getting this sort of airing and is reaching out to Force's family across the world.
Thank you, all three of you, for your time. I'll say it again, guys. It made me think. So thank you.